Why, hello there, and welcome to, I just had to make sure our audio was working, welcome to another Rich Alvarez stream. Welcome to Richcast, by the way. I am Rich Alvarez, and with me as always is Chris.
Hello, good to see you all again.
So, we have a few very exciting things that we want to talk about that have happened in the last week or so, and that is, we're going to be talking about Palworld, the Pokemon ripoff, or reimagining that Nintendo actually has a problem with, and we're going to get to that later. We're also going to be talking about Deadpool 3 finishing production and what all of the possibilities that surround that have to do with the future of the MCU. Then we will be talking about the Oscar nominations that came out this week. And lastly, or I don't know what order we're going to be talking about them in, we're also going to be talking about how Peacock, the subscription service that nobody cared about, got more subscribers in one day than any other service ever because of a football game. All this and more on the Richcast. Insert cool Rich Alvarez 3D graphic that someday on this podcast we might have. And anyways, welcome to Richcast, everybody. I'm Rich Alvarez, and welcome to the hopefully one day be regarded as one of the best podcasts out there once Chris and I figure out what to do. Anyways.
We're so glad you joined us today.
Do you want to save Palworld for last? Is that what you want to do?
That's probably the best, so maybe we should save it for last.
We're going to save Palworld for last.
But could we pull up our chat and see who has joined us so far?
Oh, welcome everybody in chat. We have... okay.
If you refresh our chat, maybe we can read everybody's...
That's correct.
We have a slightly new setting, so...
yes.
Here we go.
Welcome. Lady Rosebud. Lady Rosebud says... Oh wait, that's Tim Rod. He scrolled up for me. Lady Rosebud says, "Salutations, everyone. Look, and I can click in OBS now. I know nobody really cares, but I do." Tim says, "Heyo." Brandon Waymer's here. Lightning Bug says hello. Majora Jeff says hey, and Zaku Bloodstorm says hello, hello. All right, welcome all,
and special shout out to Lady Rosebud for being a member of our channel. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you so much. All right, so first topic first. Shall we start with some of the smaller topics first?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going to start with the Oscar nominations. Now, Chris, what is your history with the Oscars? Let's start there. I know you haven't cared so much.
I am nowhere near as invested as you are, so I don't really... I'll follow it, but not super detailed. I'll tune into whoever, won Best Picture, and that's about it.
Okay.
We might want to zoom in just a tad bit on that screen.
Well, as you could see... well, we could see it here.
Oh, I'm talking for them, yeah.
Whoop.
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
Look at that. Okay, well, we can see here the nominees for Best Picture this year. American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest. I have seen... one of these movies.
Same with me.
So the funny thing is, and this is what Chris and I were talking about earlier and why I thought it was relevant to the show, is that out of all of these nominations, there is a couple of interesting things here. Now, in the past, we've had blockbuster movies get nominated for Best Picture, but the last time that a Best Picture winner made more than $100 million at the box office was in 2012, the Ben Affleck film Argo. That's 12 years ago. 12 years ago. Because as we go farther and farther in time, the Academy Award seems to just favor these small, what we call art house indie darlings that no one ever watches. I watch them after the fact because I'm interested, and most of the time, I'm not going to lie, I love movies. You guys know I'm kind of a cinephile, but most of the time, these movies bore me, and they're so obviously what we now call Oscar bait. It used to be that the movies that won Best Picture was Gladiator and Lord of the Rings, stuff that was
made for the audience, yeah, as opposed to made for the critics.
And oftentimes, the movie that was the most popular movie was also Best Picture. Not because they were of any other reason, but because what people liked is good, and the Oscars recognize those as the best films. But in today's climate, the film snobs of the world kind of see action movies and comic movies and that sort of stuff as genre fare, and that the true Oscar films are these little art house darlings. So there's a lot of disconnect there. But as you can see, we do have Barbie and Oppenheimer on this list, And Oppenheimer, a lot of the critics are calling Oppenheimer the front runner. They really think that Oppenheimer's going to win. And remember, Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, this movie made almost $1 billion. Again, Argo only made like $150 million. I mean, that's a lot of money to most of us, right? But for a movie, that's like a somewhat breakthrough. You know, if you cross the $100 million range, then you are a hit, as long as your movie didn't cost more than like, you know, $20 million. You know, for movies like Marvel's Endgame that cost like $300 million, you have to reach those $1 billion tentpoles. But that's a story for maybe later in this podcast. The point is that if Oppenheimer wins, it's going to be the first movie since 2012 to win Best Picture that made over $100 million. And I think it's like going to be the first time in a long time that a movie made like over $500 million too. I think the last one that made over $500 million, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, was Return of the King, Lord of the Rings. So that isn't that just incredible. Thank you to all 16 of you that have joined us, by the way. Just reminding you all that if you have not liked this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up right there, also known as the like button, so that way YouTube knows that we exist and that we're doing this right now.
What
anyways,
said.
Yeah. So anyways, Oppenheimer, I'm kind of rooting for Oppenheimer. I know that there's a lot of other good movies on this list, but you know, I do want to mention before we go past the Oscars thing that, you know, people have talked a lot about like Oscar snubs, and actually, funny enough, Whoopi Goldberg, who's won an Oscar, had a very interesting thing to say about this, which is that there is no snubs. You know, not everybody gets a prize every year. You know, it's not supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be who gets what based on their performance. I agree with that most of the time, except for when a movie like, I don't know, whatever the last 5 years of movies one is, you know. But, you know, they're talking about it in general because some people, not going to name names, some people have complained that they didn't get nominated. And they're like, oh, I was snubbed. But also keep in mind that if you say that you're snubbed for an Oscar, that suggests that one of the 5 people that did get nominated doesn't deserve to be nominated in favor of you. So there's a little bit of selfishness in there, I got to say. So, and also, by the way, you may have noticed that there are 10 nominees for Best Picture. That was changed, I think, somewhere around 10 years ago. It used to be 5, just like every other category in the Academy Awards. It's usually 5, like 5 Best Actors, 5 Best Actresses, you know, nominations, and then they pick one of those. They actually changed the Best Picture to 10 nominations, still one winner, about 10 years ago when The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, was the biggest film of the year and didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, wow.
So the idea was that if they include more nominations, that some of those blockbusters would be included in there. Ironically, for like at least the first 3 years after they changed that rule, it was just 10 art house movies anyway, because people are ridiculous. Anyways, again, I'm not shaming all art house movies. Some of those are actually very good, but you know. Yeah. Anyways, I'm just saying. But my vote is for Oppenheimer. I still haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon. But one of these alleged snubs is that Leonardo DiCaprio did not get nominated for Best Actor this time. Now remember, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's been nominated like a dozen times. He only won once for The Revenant.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fact, that for the longest time, it was an ongoing meme that Leo would never win an Oscar.
Yeah.
In fact, there were some hilarious fan trailer mashups where they combined all the movies together where Leo just never got his Oscar. But then he did for The Revenant, which was, what, 15, 16, 17?
Yeah, 2016,
Yeah.
2017.
But he finally, so I was going to say we can make jokes about Leo, you know, getting snubbed, but he already finally got his Oscar, so there you go.
Oh wait, I got to go back to SonyCam. Says I'm watching you reading this on your screen, watching you from my screen. Inception. Speaking of Christopher Nolan. Anyways, I thought that was funny. Anyways, yeah. So that's what's going on with the Oscars. A lot of people are angry about it. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on. And then our second short story of the day is going to be just this little bit of news from our friends over at Peacock. And when I say our friends over at Peacock, we are not sponsored in the slightest. But I would love to be sponsored by something someday. Maybe someday, right, Chris? Anyways, I just have a picture of Peacock. You may have heard of Peacock. It is a streaming service not unlike Netflix, Amazon Prime Video,
Disney Plus, HBO Max,
Paramount Plus. You know, Peacock,
There's too many.
Peacock is NBC Universal's streaming service. So If you're a fan of Universal Films, and Universal Films has some big films such as the Jurassic Park franchise, The Fast and the Furious, other movies made by Universal Pictures. NBC, of course, has had classic shows such as The Office, Parks and Recreation, Friends, other shows by NBC, Saturday Night Live. So even though I consider Peacock, I actually enjoyed Peacock and I had it before, but the reason why Peacock has come up this week is because it has been evaluated that Peacock had the greatest day in streaming ever, and I want to say something like 50 million new subscribers in one day. Now there's a catch to this, because for the first time ever, a football, American football, in case you're not in America, NFL, American football, had a playoff game. It was the Chiefs playoff game, stream exclusively on Peacock. So for the first time ever, you could not just like turn on your TV and watch the playoff game live for free. And when I say for free, it's like these days you have to have cable or a really good, digital, and it doesn't matter. TV's not free anymore.
Yeah.
But
if you had your basic if you're
Yeah.
already paying for television.
But yeah, people are like, who bought all their expensive sports packages were not able to watch the game still unless they had Peacock.
Oh, man.
So basically everybody who wanted to watch that game, and of course it's the Chiefs, and I'm not a fan of the Chiefs, by the way, 49ers, but but a lot of people are fans of the Chiefs because they've been to the AFC Championship game 6 years in a row. Tight end Travis Kelce is dating Taylor Swift. They show her in her little booth at every game. Patrick Mahomes is basically the next Tom Brady, says everyone but me. And anyways, it was a big deal. So 50 million people tuned in for that game because they had to if they wanted to watch the game, and that is crazy. So Peacock, of all streaming services, had the biggest day. What do you think about that, Chris?
I think that was pretty interesting, and it was a little bit sneaky that they forced everybody to switch over to a streaming service, but I guess that's the future. Also, looks like we got our first super chat from Xanderbrow.
Thank you, Xanderbrow. Xanderbrow says, I just need Deadpool to make cameos in the MCU, which actually brings me to my next topic, which is
I was laughing
Deadpool 3.
That's what we're talking about next.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping us with our transition.
So, as many of you know, Deadpool 3, and it's still Deadpool 3, is the first Deadpool movie that is officially in the MCU, produced by Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios.
Because the previous two were in
Fox
the
Studios.
not MCU.
So
Fox
so
MCU.
all of the previous X-Men and Deadpool movies and all that stuff, that was all part of 20th Century Fox. But as you know, there is no more 20th Century Fox. They were acquired by Disney several years ago, and anything that was Marvel, meaning Deadpool, X-Men, Fantastic Four, any of the Marvel properties that Fox owned, when Disney bought Fox, they took all those Marvel properties and essentially just transferred the rights back to Marvel Entertainment, which I know that for a fact. Now, that means, by the way, that even if somehow Marvel Studios were to leave Disney, they still have those rights now, because Disney basically gifted them the rights to those properties back. That's another story. But the point is, now they can do a lot of cool things. But what they've chosen to do, instead of, because we all assumed that when they bought Fox that we were going to have a totally new X-Men team with totally new actors, but what have we got so far? We had, Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier in,
Days of Future Past?
No, the Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
In the classic animated chair and everything too. And then we had, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, at the end of the Marvels, I know most of you probably have seen it, we had Kelsey Grammer back as Beast from X-Men 3 and Days of Future Past.
Oh, and also in WandaVision, wasn't there one of the characters?
Evan Peters was kind of playing Quicksilver.
But not,
that was
not really.
I don't know. I think at that point they weren't sure what they were going to do.
It was
yet.
kind of like a wink.
Yeah, but now we have Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, and Kelsey Grammer as Beast. It was alluded to by the way, again, if you didn't see the Marvels, it was alluded to at the end of the Marvels that they got taken to a completely different universe, but that it's going to be brought into the main MCU. Now, as far as Deadpool 3 goes, we have some spoilers, but not a whole lot, because a lot of it is still kind of, they haven't told us everything, but we do know some stuff. Excuse me, I'm just trying
getting
to
our next video set up.
Getting this all set up over here.
There we go.
Okay, so here was a clip that was released recently. Thank you, Everything Always, for supplying the video. So, I mean, this is basically some PA or somebody was taking some video. They were obviously filming a scene of Deadpool and Wolverine walking through the fields. And, they might have been just goofing around at this point. But again, if you're not up in the up of all things Deadpool news, and I don't know why that's not
it's funny seeing this behind the scenes because I don't feel like I'm watching a movie. I feel like I'm watching a clip of Comic-Con, and like these are just people cosplaying, and they're not like the real people. It's like, yeah, those cosplayers have pretty good costumes.
So, Deadpool 3 obviously started filming earlier last year, but then the strikes happened, they had to pause, and then they resumed filming, and they were one of the productions lucky enough to be able to resume filming. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman cleared their schedules so that no matter what happened, they were able to get right back on track at any time. They were able to clear production, and that just a couple days ago, they wrapped filming. Filming is done on Deadpool 3. And yeah, in case you're really behind, Hugh Jackman is playing Wolverine in this movie, and for the first time, wearing his iconic blue and yellow suit instead of like the Fox X-Men black leather or whatever. So he's cool. Wearing his comic accurate, and even you can even see the metal notches on the glove where the the blades come out and everything. Very, very excited about this. But what this means is that this is going to be the true end, if you will, of the Fox X-Men universe. Before, this movie will show, and I'm just guessing here, I'm speculating, this movie will show Deadpool coming into the MCU. This will be the explanation of how. My personal theory is that this movie is going to be kind of a take on Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which was a comic where Deadpool had to kill every character in the Marvel Universe. But in this movie, he'll team up with Wolverine, and they'll have to kill everybody in the Fox universe, and maybe that'll be a stipulation. I know that a big rumor is that Owen Wilson from the Loki show will play his time variant character in this show, and maybe that'll be a stipulation, like, before you can come into the MCU. And, I think that this movie, like all Deadpool, will be very meta, and Deadpool will probably just acknowledge that he wants to be part of Disney. And he'll have to kill all the, the Fox characters. And he probably lies to Hugh Jackman saying, like, oh, you'll be coming with me too, that he'll have to kill him by the end of the movie just to enter the Marvel Universe. Who knows? I'm very excited for whatever the heck this ends up actually being.
Because I was going to say, I was surprised, because I don't pay as much attention to movie news as Rich does, so when I found out that he was in this movie, which was very recently, I thought that Logan, he said, was going to be his last movie. So did he basically, that was going to be his last movie? That was going to be his last movie,
but, Ryan Reynolds is very persuasive. Probably just bugging him on the phone every day until he accepted, Yeah. Anyways, I'm just going to close out one of those. Okay, so, anyways, keep talking, Chris.
Oh, yeah, so I guess what I was going to say is I really thought that was the end of Wolverine's character, the Hugh Jackman version, so the fact that we're going to get one more is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm very excited for this, and of course, we have some soft confirmations that we're going to get characters like Jennifer Garner's Elektra from the 2003 Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. I know I keep blanking on things because I'm tired.
That's the one that they used the Evanescence song in the trailer. The
right,
Wake Me Up Inside. That's yeah. That was a long time ago.
I would expect all kinds of things. Like we saw. There was another screen that I couldn't find where it showed them finding Sabretooth. Now, remember, there's the Liev Schreiber Sabretooth from X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then there's the original Sabretooth played by the wrestler guy or whatever. Oh, Tyler Mane in the original X-Men. See, sometimes I think of these names quickly. There was the Tyler Mane, and Tyler Mane would eventually go on to play Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie reboot of Halloween. But anyways, so it looks more like the Tyler Mane version, but maybe like there was also rumored that Liev Schreiber's version would also be in this movie. We'll probably see I would love to see Chris Evans, not as Captain America, but as the Flaming Torch from his Fantastic Four movie.
I forgot about that.
I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of funny little cameos, and they're just going to have to just, kill everybody and just be like, all right. And then, I'm excited for whatever this movie ends up being. The one thing that I did want to mention here that before we move on is that this is going to be the only MCU movie this year.
Oh, that's a good
point. For 2024. In the past, we've had 3, sometimes 4 Marvel movies a year. And again, technically, it won't be the only Marvel movie because then there's Madam Web and the Sonyverse. but that's not the MCU. That's Sony. Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, and they do Venom, they do Morbius, they do Madam Web, they do a bunch of crap that Kevin Feige's not really involved in.
And they do Enter the Spider-Verse, right? Or is that a different one?
Well, that's Sony, but that's not part of that live action.
Yeah.
I like Into the
those are
Spider-Verse
really good.
and Across the Spider-Verse. Those movies are awesome. I'm talking about
The
Venom,
live action,
Morbius. Those are like, but Madam Web is probably going to be, But that's not MCU. I'm just talking about as far as MCU goes. Ever since 2012, after the Avengers, we've usually had about 3 or 4 Marvel movies a year. Not counting 2020 for obvious reasons, but that's going to be the only movie this year. We were also supposed to get Captain America 4, but they tested it in front of audiences, and again, I don't want to speculate the reasons why, but the point is that the audiences really didn't like the movie, so instead of just reshoots, they're rewriting it and starting from scratch. They're refilming the whole movie, or at least that's what we hear through the grapevine.
Pretty wild.
Is that it's such an extensive reshoot they're just calling it a refilm, which is crazy. I wonder how bad was that movie.
We'll never know.
I want to see it. But yeah, Deadpool 3 is going to be the only MCU movie this year. And it's interesting because it's an MCU movie that is really a continuation of the Fox universe. So I can't wait to see how this movie works and what they do with this movie. And it is my genuine hope that this reinvigorates the fandom for a lot of Marvel fans that have felt so-called superhero fatigue or Marvel fatigue or whatever fatigue. I'm sorry you're all a little tired with your fatigue, But, people forget, like, Marvel hasn't been good since Endgame. And yet, Guardians 3 made $1 billion, so you all like Guardians 3. I liked Guardians 3. Multiverse of Madness. Okay, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't do that voice and make fun of you like that. But, I liked Multiverse of Madness. Oh, sorry, I'm not gonna do that voice.
All right.
Y'all
long
said...
story short, I will say this. Matt Pat had a pretty good point that they had a very, very structured story all the way up until Endgame, and that now it seems like all these different stories are kind of disjointed, and the stakes that they raise and some don't quite translate over to the other. So I do think that there are some people who have superhero fatigue that have a legitimate point, which is that it seems like all these little movies and spin-off TV shows, all like the rules of each sub-universe don't always line up.
See, y'all aren't comic book fans, man. Like,
okay, but that just goes to show them they're not doing a good job on the adaptation.
So, like, here's the thing. In comic books, sometimes you can have dry runs, right? I love Spider-Man comics. I love Marvel comics in general. Some of you know I used to work at A1. I'm a big comic book guy. Here's the thing. Sometimes you have 3-4 years without a good comic. You literally, just for whatever reason, you get the wrong writers with the wrong artists or whatever, some combination thereof. And you're like, oh man, the last 2 years of, some people are like, the last 10 years of Spider-Man haven't been good. I like all of Spider-Man comics, but sometimes there's not a great run of X-Men, or sometimes there's not a great 2 years of Avengers. But nobody's like, man, I'm done reading comics. I'm gonna go switch over to DC, or just done with comics in general. No, you understand that different artists rotate in, they come in. I know that everybody's kind of just getting used to this idea in movies, because before Avengers 2012, there was nothing like this on planet Earth.
Well, they set the bar so high that now we have expectations.
But now film audiences are getting used to the idea of a connected universe, different realms, different universes, you're kind of being thrust into this whole thing all at once. So I know that this is kind of a crappy excuse to some, and that's fine. But you're gonna get some years with bad movies. You're gonna get some bad films, and that's okay. When you plan to have 4 films a year, and eventually they'll get back to that again, some of them aren't going to be good. Not every movie can be A+. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I was going to say is I don't think it's just superhero fatigue. I watched a video essay recently. I actually didn't tell you this, but they were talking about multiverse fatigue. And they said multiverse fatigue is a thing now because when you have when there's only one universe, the stakes are high. If somebody dies, that's it. They're gone. Whereas in multiverses, it's like, oh, somebody died. Oh, just kidding. We can just pop them in from another multiverse, and it makes it so that the emotional stakes get cheapened if it's not done well.
I mean, that's comic
So-
book for you, though. That's
Yeah.
how that has always worked, you know?
But the point is still the same. It does get fatiguing because you don't get as emotionally invested in the characters because the stakes aren't there. So I'll say this. I mean, I am not as big of a movie fan or as a comic book fan as Rich is. So, you know, like for me, I'm not going to read like all the comics and all the source material and blah, 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 blah. But I personally am not enjoying this recent arc as much. Oh, there's Scott.
Scott Otter says...
Well, let me finish my point. I enjoyed the up to 2019 run better than what we've had since 2019. And I think that there are many like me, and you can call us plebs or whatever, but I do think that the vision was better and the movies were better. And it's not as good now for most of us.
Fair. Scholar says, I've went 3-4 years without having a great comic plenty of times. Anyways, just thought that was fun. All
right. So,
okay. So, anyways, I think we're done talking about the comics and all that stuff. But you get my point. I'm hoping, and I could be wrong, I'm just hoping that things will improve. Deadpool 3, hopefully...
it should be a good movie. I'm really excited for
reinvigorates.
Deadpool 3.
Let's move on to our final topic
All right,
before we
so-
get to answering some of your questions, potentially.
So, to build into this, I'm really excited to tell you guys about this. So, within, I'd say, the past week or two, I will browse, YouTube and Reddit, and all of a sudden, my entire feed just got flooded with this new game that you might have heard of called Palworld. And anyway,
Here's Palworld.
Palworld, I got to set this up. So when I first heard about it, people were like, oh, it's a Pokemon knockoff. And then they were like, oh, it's a Pokemon knockoff, but it's more mature because there's guns. And then it was like, oh, it's a Pokemon knockoff, and it's more mature because it has guns. And it also is copying another game as well. And what other game is it copying?
Well, to me, it's like, especially, once you really deep dive into what all this is, this game kind of feels like Minecraft meets Pokemon, because it's a game where you start out and you're
creating a character.
You create a character and you start with nothing, and then you have to farm resources, farm your wood, farm your stone, and it's basically like a lot of survival games. If anybody has ever played like what was the
Rust? They mentioned Rust.
Rust was mentioned, but what's the Valheim? Was that the...
Oh, Valheim was another one. It's the survival craft games.
So like you do a lot of crafting, and then you build a base, and then you go and with balls, just like in Pokemon, you collect these pals, and they basically can help you build stuff, and eventually you can do farming, not unlike Minecraft, but then your pals, your Pokemon, will help you, and here's the thing, look, you can just straight up beat these pals, Pokemon,
you can
to
kill
death.
them. And apparently you can eat them too. It's like I said, it's like when I first heard this, I was actually like, what's the rating on this game? It was a little tricky to find because like Pokemon obviously is like for kids, or at least the rating is kids. I'm pretty sure this was rated teen. So in like movie lingo, this would be like a PG-13 game. Not a rated R game, so it's not really mature.
You can download this game now. It's in beta on Steam, but it may not ever make it to its alpha version because
there's some controversies.
Nintendo has heard about a lot of this, of course, and they may soon. We'll get to that article in just a second. I just want everybody to see.
Look at this. This little guy right here looks like they took Eevee and
it's
like
Eevee and Charmander and combined it in one. And like,
so
look
many.
I was just saying, I like how you can just pick up the Pokemon and use its like a flamethrower. Like basically just using it as a direct weapon. But like I don't know, when it shows the Pokemon, or sorry, the pals like making the guns in that factory, they all look so sad.
Yeah, and look, that looks like Electabuzz. There's a deer Pokemon that looks like Ursurus. That looks like Eevee, but with blue. Like a lot of these like really look like straight up ripoffs.
Oh, and then you're using your PAL deck instead of Pokedeck to like learn about everything. But I love because the developers of this game, which is literally called Pocket
Pals or Pal Pocket or
Pocket
Palworld, I forget.
Pocket Pair or something like that.
Pal Pair.
No, I don't know. But it's Pocket something. They're called Pocket something. It's Palworld.
Pear.
Oh, Pear. It is Pear, Pocket Pear. But they have refused any likeness to Pokemon. They're like, oh, it's just a coincidence. We hired a guy a few years ago. It was an undergraduate that just designed everything. I call bullcrap. Yeah, maybe you had a guy design these things that kind of looks like Pokemon, but in your game, you've devised a system where you catch them with balls. And it's obvious. It's so obvious what they're doing here. PAL deck. I mean, come on.
It's Pokemon.
They're not going to get away with this. Nintendo has seen a lot of this, and they are deciding how to go about legal action.
Well, I think it seems like they're considering suing them.
I mean, I could go to that article, but I
the thing is, though, I don't know enough about copyright law and fair use of whether, because the way it works is you have to like remix it and make it just different enough. So the real question is, was it different enough? Now, with all that said, I have not played this game, but I do have to admit, it looks really fun. And apparently most people who have played it have said that it's actually an extremely fun game. So even if it is kind of a ripoff in the character design, it might actually be worth playing. I mean, there they are throwing their Pokeballs. I mean, PAL balls.
Here's the thing. How many Pokemon are there now? Like over 1,000 or something?
There's a lot, yeah.
The point is, you can't...
At some point, Nintendo's used all the little monster animations.
I don't know if... Yes, some of these are like so obvious because they're copying those classic Gen 1 eyes, the big,
I was going to say like, the eyes on like Charmander or Dragonite kind of
Which,
look.
in my opinion, that's kind of like classic Pokemon. A lot of these monsters are so close. Look, there's him catching one. A lot of these are so close to classic Pokemon. Like, look at this mouth-looking thing,
Yeah.
That, it should be obvious to anyone what they're doing here. But what I was going to say was, should Nintendo be able to sue? Because although a lot of these are very similar, they're not exact duplicates. And then we get into copyright law, which is such a big beast of a thing. It's like, does your copyright mean that nobody can make something similar? And could this game kind of be considered parody?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because parodies, you can tweak stuff just a little bit.
Yeah, because look, you're not using 9mm and shotguns in Pokemon.
What the heck is? I mean, I do have to say, like, I imagine the guy who pitched this. It's like, what if we took Pokemon and Minecraft and we added guns
and we could shoot them?
It's like you've got an idea there. It's brilliant. It'll print gold. I mean, it looks pretty good. And I heard the game actually runs like really smooth.
Hey, I mean, it looks cleaner than most Pokemon games.
And I was going to say, for those beta open access games, a lot of times they're very like rough and they don't play very well. I've heard from the reviews I've read that they actually did a very good job and it runs like pretty darn smooth and people are excited for like more content coming out. So it might be a ripoff, but they did a good job.
Scary Mouse Dumbo shooting Pokemon. What is this? Well, this is not a Pokemon game. This is Palworld, and I'm kind of bringing up the topic of should Nintendo be able to sue them? But again, because none of these are Pokemon. They all look kind of like Pokemon.
Yeah.
But it's honestly that's not up to us. That's up to Nintendo and how good their lawyers are. True. But in my opinion, I don't think if Nintendo was to take this game to court, I don't think they should win. Because I feel like you should be able to
just enough to be out. Yeah, it's not a complete ripoff. It's just heavily inspired.
Like, let's look at again going back to comics. Can DC sue Marvel because Quicksilver has the same powers as the Flash?
That's a good question.
No, they can't because it's derivative. And I think there was even a case back then that kind of decided that doesn't matter. Similar powers, Well, you can't copyright my hero has blast breath. You can't copyright an ideal like that, even though IP literally does stand for intellectual property. And I do know some people that think that IP should not even be a thing, but that's a whole philosophical debate for never.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting because the Mickey Mouse whatchamacallit for Steamboat Willie just came out of copyright, and now of course tons of people are using that version because it is in the public domain.
Right.
But long story short, this game looks very interesting. Talking about it, the whole internet was talking about it, a lot of people are playing it, and I do have to say it looks like a fun game. I definitely was interested in playing it after I saw all the hype. So yeah, that's our thoughts on Palworld.
The last thing I want to say about any of that is just that it looks fun. I hope the developers are able to take it to alpha, and then the question will be, depending on how Nintendo wants to frame this, I wouldn't want Nintendo to actually sue for money, but they could lay claim to certain things. I would like this game to be able to get made. I want to see the alpha. I know technically you can download it in beta. I want them to see it through.
Well, it's
I don't
funny
know.
because if you go onto Steam, at least the very top-rated comment just says, "Please don't get sued."
Yeah.
Because people like the game and they just don't want it to disappear forever.
Exactly.
So, did you want to pull the comments up? Maybe we can see what people are saying.
Oh yes, we have the comments right here.
The other one.
Oh, you want me to do this? Okay.
Yeah.
So now is the time we're gonna talk a little bit about what you guys have been talking about.
So I guess my first question to you guys is, and we weren't quite able to see all the comments when we were chatting, but has anybody played PAL games? And if yes, did you enjoy it?
Palworld.
Sorry, Palworld. I haven't played it yet.
Have you played Palworld? Did you like it? Do you think it's a Pokemon ripoff? Or do you think that it's just a coincidence? Let us know.
And for those of you that didn't hear of it until now, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's worth playing? And oh, there we go. We already got one.
Yeah, Zaku Bloodstorm says, I played it and it's amazing.
All right. So we got one person who enjoyed it.
Have to take your word for it. Scary Mass Tomboy says, Rich and Chris, what are your plans for 2024? Well, right now we
the exact thing we're doing right now.
doing this stream.
Doing streams.
I don't think that far ahead, man.
We'll take this one day at a time. But thanks for asking.
But yeah, it's good times. Good times, Sally.
What about the one above that? The Pokemon games copied?
What now?
The one from Zaku?
Oh, didn't we just... Oh, no, we didn't. Yeah, Pokemon has copied from other games as well, so they not all as saintly as people
I
make
see.
them out to
Yeah.
be.
So his point is that some could say that Pokemon copied other genres, so they're not 100% original.
It goes
so.
back to that old, like, remix,
Remix, copy, transform, remake.
Copy, transform, remix. Again, some people are, more sticklers about this sort of thing than others. You could be of the opinion that if you have an idea, nobody should ever get anything even close to your idea. And if you think that way, you're probably a CEO. Or you could accept the idea of, take, copy, remix, transfer, transform. I can't remember the exact order, but it's the philosophy that, everything is a remix of something else. Mm-hmm. There is no such thing anymore because we've gone so far in time. It's a very philosophical discussion. There's no such thing as anything original.
There's a video that my cousin Dominic showed both of us about a decade ago, but it's called Everything is a Remix. And if you Google it, it's on YouTube. It's by a guy named Kirby, I think. It's really interesting because it shows all like the famous movies you've seen over the years were copying other movies, which were copying other movies, and it's like a lot of basically it's like there's no true original idea. Everything takes inspiration. So what's like the line of like when it's inspired by versus straight up copying? Anyway, long story short, it's a very interesting documentary. I think you guys would enjoy quite a bit.
I think that now that Mickey Mouse is coming coming into the public domain, a lot of people are going to start to understand like what that difference actually is, like, because you can take stuff from Steamboat Willie, that's the original Mickey Mouse cartoon, and you can use technically the Steamboat Willie, literally the black and white no gloves version of Mickey Mouse, and put him where you want because he's part of the public domain. You can't use a modern version of Mickey Mouse and put him anywhere. You can only use Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse. But even then, it's like, so if everything has a like a deadline or a time
expiration
limit,
date when it goes to the public domain,
what's the point of anything, right? Well, it's like, I think that copyright law and trademark law and all those things, those are very like, I don't know, I want to say colonial things. Like those are things that have only been around for a few hundred years, really, unless you go back to the time of the Romans, because I think didn't the Romans have like. They had something similar. I don't know.
I think we're getting way
off track.
Beyond the scope
the point
of
is,
this podcast. I think we should just get back to having fun playing video games.
Should you be able to claim an idea? That's the real thing, and I guess this is not the time to...
I think the better question is Palworld fun? And, I like Zaku's next
this
comment.
One?
Yeah.
Palworld is what people think the Pokemon world is outside the games, because they would eat Pokemon and such. Actually, that's a really good point. I forgot to mention that while we were watching the video too. It's like everything that happens in Palworld where like you're basically just abusing these creatures and using them for your own bloodlust and everything. It's like all of those things actually do happen in Pokemon. But they've just kiddified everything.
Well, it's implied, whereas this game is rated teen, so it's a little bit more adult.
So it's like chicken fights, we used to compare it because chicken fights, very illegal, never do it.
Very unethical.
They used to do it a lot in the Old West, and I guess they still do it somewhere, but those are horrible people. Basically, it's like where you put one rooster against another rooster, and you put like razor blades on their claws, and they tear each other up. It's very sad. It's very sad. But a lot of parents, especially in the beginning, used to compare Pokemon to that.
Oh, because
you're basically having other animals fight other animals.
Well, it was cartoony and kitty, and they just fainted. They didn't die.
Oh, it fainted, But like it was in like Smosh's old parodies, it's like Pikachu fainted, his head's gone or something.
Yeah. They actually, by the way, Smosh for the first time in years, they just made a new Pokemon in real life, and it had Jesse and James, and it was actually really funny. If you haven't seen it, you guys should check it out.
But this game is kind of only bringing to light again what Smosh has already been making fun of for years, which is that Pokemon, at its core, is actually extremely violent and extremely moralistically gray, but it's like Pokemon training, and it's battle arenas, and we gloss it up and make them look cute, and we forget that you're forcing animals to fight other animals.
Well, they're actually monsters. They're not animals. They're pocket monsters, so it's okay.
Okay, but these monsters include birds and natural fauna.
I know, I get it.
Okay, you know what? You know what I'm getting
at. Power of friendship. It's this. That makes it all
I'm just saying this game is just taking those ideas that we like to forget and bringing them to the forefront. Yeah. And I do think that is very interesting. And I wonder, what will Nintendo say about that, if anything? I don't know.
There you go. Well, long story short, it was a very creative idea. Well, let me put it this way. It was creative to combine Pokemon with Minecraft and bump it from kid to teen. That was actually creative, even if the art style is a bit of a ripoff. The remix was very creative.
T is the... I know we saw an article where it was somebody at ESRB rated it teen. Again, it's still in beta, so the official rating, who knows what it'll be if this game ever officially releases. But it has been deemed T by someone at the ESRB. I think it was in
Europe they did it. Well, anyway, long story short, it's not like mature. So it's for teens. But it's not like so ridiculous and over the top. It'd be the equivalent to like a rated R movie. It's a PG-13 movie if we're going to do the comparison.
Sure. An American PG-13, by the way, which is different than a European PEGI-12 or whatever they call it.
I don't know what the ratings are.
Anyways, Chris, do we have anything else to add?
I think
or is that going to do it?
Covered it.
Well, I do want to say that words. Hi. What I want to say is, like, I know that we're always kind of changing these streams and everything, but thank you for joining us today, and hopefully in the future we'll get. And I feel like this stream actually went really well, but I was a little stumbling on a few things, hence now me going. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I enjoyed talking about Palworld because that one really caught me by surprise. I mean, I've always been more of a video game fan than a movie fan, so long story short, I think we had a good mix of topics. I hope you guys enjoyed the setup. We had a slightly different setup than our previous streams. Sometimes we do stuff with a giant group of people. Sometimes it's a little bit more intricate like this where we're just reading articles and watching videos. But long story short, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed our commentary.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Just let me know once this video becomes a permanent video, so once its stream is over, it's up there, please leave an actual comment and let us know what would you like us to do in the next stream. It could be a technical thing like, fix your background, it's too gray and plain. Or it could be like, get a new co-host because Chris is old. I'm kidding. But, like anything at all.
Or you could just let us know if there's any interesting topics you want us to cover. If there's something new in gaming that you want us to react to, like new trailers, new video games, maybe Nintendo news we're behind on, or a new movie you want to hear our thoughts on, or TV show. But long story short, I think this was good.
Zaku Bloodstorm says, you guys are awesome. I like this setup. Well, thank you very much. The actual setup took us all of 5 minutes. So
there you go.
But anyways, I think that's going to do it for us today. I've really enjoyed this. Yeah, please subscribe. It's free and easy. Just like
ripping off Pokemon.
Just like ripping off Pokemon and saying it's a coincidence. Hooray. Yeah, well, that's going to do it for us, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed the stream. It's a lot of fun. Have a pleasant day.
And an even more wonderful tomorrow.
Did I reverse those?
Do it the other way.
Have a wonderful day.
And an even more pleasant tomorrow.
You think I'd get it after all these years, but
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Oh, we have a goodbye screen. We have an
we do.
Bye bye, y'all.
Goodbye.
See ya.